if you want, we can start. Uh, so, first of all, thank you very much for being here, sharing this webinar about. We are going to talk about ethical values and corporate social responsibility. I know that all of you are inside of a entrepreneur life, which is very interesting. And well, I would like to show these aspects about values and corporate social responsibility about CSR, because I think that today it's really important factors for business, and moreover, I will say that it's really interesting uh, for new business for when you are trying to make or to build a new business. When you are an entrepreneur, I think that they are really important. Even I know, because I have been in your site, I know that when you are building a new company, you have a lot of things to do, you have a lot of things to check. And I think that sometimes we forget these issues about ethics or CSR, or at least we have these issues in our mind, but we don't have we don't develop these areas like the other ones. So, well, that's because I think that how I was saying that I think that it's very interesting, and I hope you enjoy what I'm going to see, what we are going to see. Uh, I know that I'm going to try to make a big picture. So I think that I'm confident that we are going to. I'm going to show a lot of concepts and a lot of ideas, and I know that all of them we could stop and go in deeper. But I think that it's important, at least that's my point of view in this webinar, to have the big picture, and then if you want, we can go deeper in some of the questions, or we can carry on with these points. But I think that, how I was saying, that it's important to have what is happening in business, what is happening in companies, what is happening in companies are about CSR and ethical and business ethics. So I hope that you are hearing me. Are you hearing me? It's everything perfect?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Well, this is the okay. This is the index, that the 5 points that we are going to talk about. We are going to talk about the context of companies and the context as well of CSR. We are going to talk about some global trends around business and around CSR and business ethics. And the most important part of this presentation of this webinar is to trying to show you 7 big changes that I think that CSR, business ethics, and these kind of things have put on the table of business. I think that there are 7 issues that have been appearing on the table of businesses, and I think that they are very important. And I think that the push of these 7 big changes was corporate social responsibility. And finally, we will see, I think that all these changes are drawing a new business model. I mean, it's not only something that it's important for businesses like any other function or wherever. I think that they are showing that we need a new business model. We need a new a new model of companies. And finally, I will show some little ideas about social business and social entrepreneurs. I think that it's really important today, this point, and some difference about social business between social businesses and CSR. That because sometimes we are confusing CSR and social business, like if it's they are the same, and I think that they have some difference between these 2 ideas. Well, let me start with the first point of the webinar. And well, before starting with the webinar, I would like to share with you really first the approach about what is CSR, because I guess that, or maybe you know what is CSR, but I would like to share some definitions or some ideas about what is CSR in order to have to be in the same point, and then we can talk about these issues. The first thing that I would like to, or I will say about CSR is that CSR is a voluntary integration, which means that something, it's not only something that is in the law. The law is very important, but when we are talking about corporate social responsibility, we are always talking about the voluntary integration. And I think that this is one important issue when we are talking about these issues. And the second part that I would like to show is that it's a voluntary integration of social and ecological concerns into the corporate activities and their relationship with the stakeholders. Well, this idea about the CSR show us that when we are talking about the corporate social responsibility, we are talking not only about the economics part of the company, we are talking about the social and the environmental or ecological part of the companies. So I think that for the first approach, it's important to have these three circles, like three circles of the companies. It's not only the economical issues, it's as well the social and ecological or environmental issues. The second idea about the first approach of the CSR is that when we are talking about this concept, we are talking about the responsibility of companies about their impact on society. I mean, every activity or every decision of company has an impact on society. So when we are talking about CSR, we are talking about the responsibility about this impact. And sometimes I would like to say that because sometimes when we think about impact, we are always thinking about bad impact or something wrong. No? Sometimes, a lot of times, the companies are having good impacts on society, and as well, this is the responsible of companies. And the third idea, I think that for me is like the two first ideas or approaches what is European Union is what is the European Union saying about CSR. These are more or less the definitions of the European Union. The third one is like my definition, is what I understand when I'm talking about socially responsible company. I think that the company which is socially responsible is the company which is responding to the legitimate expectation of its stakeholders. Which means that, first of all, it means that the company has a lot of stakeholders around them, and the company has to try to know what are the legitimate expectations of these stakeholders. And when company is trying to respond to these legitimate expectations, I think that this is a corporate a company which is socially responsible. Well, I don't know, this first approach, at least to have some ideas that when we are talking about CSR, some ideas that you have to be in your mind, which is the first idea about the circles, the economic, social, and environmental circle or areas. And the second idea is to have into account the impacts of the company on society. And the third issue, which is around the idea of to try to respond to the legitimate expectation of the stakeholders. Well, with this first approach on in your mind, I think that we could start talking about the context of companies and the context of CSR. And for me, it's very important to talk about the context, because sometimes when we are talking about CSR, we know, or at least for my experience, I know that it's a good narrative. I mean, a lot of people like CSR or like business ethics, and when you are talking with companies, they say, "Oh, that's very important." But usually, the companies are answer to you like, or don't answer to you, but you know that they are thinking that okay, that's very important, that's very good, but you know who is the market, you know the context of companies, you know the competitiveness, you know that it's so hard. So this is, I love the CSR, but I'm so sorry, but the market is the market. No? So I think that it's important to to see how is the context of companies in order to see or to check if the context is going to the is closer to CSR or is going in the other side. Because when we are talking about the context and we are going to talk about the market, what is happening in the market, I think that sometimes when you talk about the market with companies and CSR, they know or they discover that, okay, this is not something, this is not only which is very good, this is something that could be important for me in the market. So I think that the perspective is changing. So I think that that's because I think that it's very important to know or to see what is happening in the context of companies. And if we take, sorry, one of the most important issues in the market is the competitiveness. What is happening with the competitiveness in the market? And if we cross this idea of the competitiveness with the what is happening with the intangibles, with what is where is the what's the role of the intangibles in the market in order to cross this idea with the competitiveness, and we take one of the most important issues in the market, which is the offer and demand. What is happening with the offer and demand? So, well, if we have these three ideas and we put it in a graphic, we could check that first, in a market where the offer is smaller than the demand, which is sometimes with the startups, you can be in a market where the offer is smaller than the demand, but this is not usual today. I mean, you can think about a lot of products that we have in the market, and I think that the context of market is not that we have less offer than demand. It was for example, if we try to see an example of this market, we could think, for example, about Ford. What was happening with Ford when they made the first car? There were less capacity to make cars than clients in the door waiting for your car. So when you are in this market, it's quite usual that your orientation is about the production, because you need to make more cars, because you have clients in the door waiting for your cars. I don't know if it's the example. Can you carry on with me with the example? Yeah, it's everything. I'm checking sometimes because I don't know if I'm talking alone or I'm talking with someone. I'm talking with someone, right? Okay, so in this context of the market, when the offer is smaller than the demand, is quite usual that companies be in this orientation about the production. But how I was saying, this is not the market today. If we are growing in the market, we could see that, for example, when you are, I'm going to put it here, even we can imagine that what happens with the offer and demand is more or less the same, is more or less equal. Well, when that happens, the companies they are not only the orientation of the production, they are orientated as well to the product that sales. They have to try to sell the product. They have to go to the market in order to say, okay, look, my product is better because my product has a quality or whatever. But even we could say that this is not the reality in the market. When we are talking about the market, I think that the reality today is that the offer is bigger than the demand. I mean, you can see wherever any product you have on your table, and you will see that, okay, there are more capacity to produce a lot of products, to make a lot of products than demand, that capacity of the demand. So when that happens, I think that the orientation of the companies is not the production or product or sale. They are orientated to the market, and we can go more. We can grow, and we could see that it's not only market orientation; it's society orientation. And today we see a lot of brands in the world trying to get some society with some needs which are in the society in order to go to the market to have a better competitive with the other companies. So I think that even if we think about the market, not only about the CSA, we think about the context of companies and what is happening with the context of companies. I think that this context is pushing to the companies in order to go to the in order to go to the society to discover what is happening there and then take some ideas in order and then go to the market. So I think that this is a good context for CSR because when companies are going to the society, I think that is as well our responsibility in order to say, okay, for us it's important the environment. So if you want to be better than the other companies, you have to take into account the environment. Or for me, it's important the child labor. So if you want to be better than the other company, you have to take that into account. So I think that this is it could be the context of companies in market in the big market. So I think that this context is important when you are talking about CSR with companies because they discovered that it's not only a good issue, it's not only something good, it's something that they can use in order to go to the market. So we could think that this idea or this first approach of the context, and we could see as well the context about the what is happening with trust, what is happening with the relevance of the trust in the market as well, because I think that trust is one of the more important issues that you can get with business ethics and corporate social responsibility. And I'm sure that if when I'm asked to the companies or business or woman, men or woman businesses which are in the companies, if it's important for them trust, they always say that trust is the most important issue of the companies. It's one of the most important issues. It's very difficult to have a company if you don't have the trustee of the trustness of your clients, workers, or wherever. So if we see what is happening about these issues around trust and the relevance of trust in the society and in the market as well, we could see that the evolution of CSR, how has been the evolution of CSR, and I think that more or less has been the same evolution in every part of the world. I think that the first point of the how arrived the CSR to the companies, I think that the first step was the philanthropy. A lot of companies was making philanthropy, was going to or was helping to some NGOs or wherever. And I think that this is very important. I'm not saying that it's not important. It's very important, of course. And I would like that more companies was helping to a lot of NGOs. But if we think about I think that maybe this philanthropy orientation was maybe 15 or 20 years ago. But if we go we carry on in seeing what was happening with CSR, I think that the second step was that a lot of companies discovered that the communication of this philanthropy has a return for them, was important for them. So then they start to talk about the philanthropy in the company. What were they saying? They making sorry with NGOs, and they start this communication orientation. So we have to talk about this issue with our stakeholders, but because it's important for our stakeholders, and we could see that, for example, this communication orientation, it has some problems. I mean, one of the problems was that they was talking about CSR, but they were doing only philanthropy, not CSR. I mean, philanthropy is only one part of the CSR, but it's not the same. So I think that this is one of the problems that in this orientation, when you have only the communication orientation about philanthropy. So then if we carry on in the context of CSR, and I think that it's very related with what was happening with trust, with trust in the market and with the companies, we see that there were, I mean, the third step was the reporting orientation. I mean, if you want to, I mean, we could think about the dialogue with companies. So saying that if you want to do a report about CSR, you have to talk about something else than philanthropy. There are a lot of things that are very important for a CSR report. So if you want to be a company which is working on CSR, you have to do more. You have to tell me more KPIs than philanthropy. And for example, in this reporting orientation, we have the Global Reporting Initiative, which is the most important standard in the world in order to do CSR reports. And it's a very important. I mean, I think that we need a standard in order to do these reports. But for example, I think that in Spain and in Europe, and I could say that in the world, we were in this step, in this reporting orientation. We have, for example, Spain was one of the most important countries with companies making really good reports. I mean, we have a lot of companies doing really good reports on CSR, but in the last crisis in 2008, so suddenly we discovered that that could be that companies, or maybe companies, were making reports on CSR, but something was happening, because I don't know if this is true, or I don't know what is happening. So I think that today the context the context of companies and CSR needs, or it's in the ethical orientation. Okay, it's important philanthropy, it's important the communication orientation, it's important reporting, but if everything is not inside of the culture of, or the ethical orientation of the companies, this is not going to do anything. This is not going to work. So I think that we need the companies, when they are working in these ideas, they need as well an ethical orientation. And I think that all of the steps are important. I'm not saying that the ethical orientation is the everything that you need, because the reporting orientation is important, the communication orientation is important, but if you don't add the ethical orientation, you are going to lose all the power of CSR. So I think that this is one of the important issues in the context of companies and CSR, who has that companies have to take into account. Well, for example, if we see, this is the Edelman Trust Barometer in 2018, and if you see in a retrospective period, they are saying that today, this year, is the battle for trust. I mean, the companies are fighting in order to get the trust, because they know that it's very important. They need the trust of the different stakeholders. So I know that who I was saying, we could stop here and we could talk about all these context, about what's happening in the market, what is happening with trust. And I know that because I think that it's a really important issue, and I think that we could talk a lot. But how I was saying, I would like to show you the big picture. So right now, I don't know if someone is saying something or want to say something. So I don't know how to check if someone want to talk, or I guess that is.
I have asked of questions, but to them. But right now we don't have questions. I think if anyone just wants to have a question or to say something, just comment, and I'll let you know, Roberto, if you feel.
All right.
That's better for you.
Okay.
Cool.
Perfect. So then, after being this context, I would like to show you some global trends about. Well, I would say that some global trends about CSR or businesses, but I think that they are global trends for companies in general. It's not only CSR or businesses. I think that it's something which is being very important for companies in every function of the company or every area of the companies. The first trends are some of the first trends are around what is happening with consumers. And if you see a lot of reports, because you can see a lot of reports in internet or whatever, and they are asking about what is the most important things, or yeah, is the sustainability important for customers. So I think that we have a lot of reports showing that there is a trend about sustainability. I think that this is something that, well, someone could be disagree, but I think that when you see or when you analyze the context of companies or some trends, I think that this sustainability is very important. And moreover, I think that it's important as well that who is talking about this sustainability is not someone who is outside of the system. This is a Deloitte. I mean, this is completely inside of the system. And they are saying that sustainability is one of the most important things that consumers are taking into account when you are going to buy something. So I think that this is one of the most important trends that, how I was saying, we could see a lot of reports. Well, as well, another report or another idea. No? I mean, I think that the customers, the client, they know that they have. We know that we have some power. Sometimes we know that we have some power and we don't use it. But there are a lot of people who is conscious that we have the power to make something to affect change. So, and I think that this number is as well growing. So I think that this idea, I mean, the companies are taking into account, or they know that there is a lot of people saying or that, okay, I can change something, so I have power. uh, some of them are using the power and another people is not using the power, but the trend is that more people is using this power, that okay, I can change something, and I can change something as well when I'm going to buy something. Well, so this is as well one of the trends. And for example, this is as well another report that show us that when people is asking about the preference or in consumers in the age of 20 or and 29, the most a lot of people is saying that I feel that I can make a difference to the world through my choices and actions in market. I mean, we know that we can change something, not only acting like an activist, which is very important as well, but as well when we are going to the market. So I think that the market is today could be a tool in order to change the world. So I think that a lot of people is knowing that. Well, another trend which is very important is about the reputation. I mean, I think that the reputation, which is really related with brands. So what is happening with brands? And when we are talking about the reputation or brands, I'm not talking only about the big brands that everyone knows. I mean, we know that there is a lot of really big brands, but I think that even the small companies are thinking that I need a brand. I need to build a brand, and the reputation of it's one of the most important issues for in order when you want to buy to build a brand. So I think that this is as well, even if you forget of all of these business languages in business about reputation, wherever you can think about yourself. I mean, it's important to have a really good reputation. So it's the same in companies. Even if you are a small company, you need a good reputation, and it's important in order to have to get this reputation. Is the brand is really important. And for example, there are a lot of companies who are trying to become a brand, And they are doing that because they know that to have a brand improves recognition, inspires workers, helps companies to be different, and helps them to connect emotionally with customers, etc. I mean, they know that it's important to build a brand. And I think that when you are, even if you are in a startup, I know that, or I think that it's very important to think about how is going to be my brand. And if you think about how is going to be my brand, you have to take into account all the trends and all the context that we were talking about before. Because when you are, if you want to build a brand and you are starting your company or you are a startup, I think that it's a good moment. It's a good moment in order to think about these issues. I mean, because you are starting, so you can think about how I would like to show or how I would like to build my brand, how I want to be. And I think that this is really important. And for example, in this with this report, which was made for Havas Group, well, when they were uh, checking what are the attributes of the brands, of the important brands, of the meaningful brands, I think that it's important to think that only one of the attributes has to be with the functional benefits. I mean, only one attribute has to be with quality or wherever. And there are there are a lot of them, of the attributes of meaningful brands, which have to be with government, ethics, environment, community, workplace, etc., and economy. I mean, I think that even when I think that when you and try to analyze what is happening with the big brands, you see that I think that all these brands, what they are working is not about the functional attributes of the product or the brand. They are thinking about how to connect with the stakeholders. And in order to connect with the stakeholders, I think that the values, the ethical values, are one of the most important issues that you can use in order to connect with your values. It has some problems. You need credibility. I mean, when you are talking about ethical values, you need credibility. So then you need to build something before connect with your customers if you want to use the ethical values. Well, and we could carry on with a lot of more. We have more trends in the market and in the society, but I think that I will stop here. And but I can I cannot I can finish without saying that, of course, this is as well one of the trends that what is happening in internet, with what is happening in YouTube, in WhatsApp, wherever. This is, I think that the dimension of this issue is so big in order to say it's not only a tool, it's a trend. I mean, you have to take it into account. And moreover, when I was looking for this picture that I think that you can see, this is what's happening in 60 seconds in internet with YouTube, WhatsApp, or wherever. And I think that when you see what is happening, it's like, oh my God, what's that? But it's interesting because when you can see that, and I guess that I don't know, depend, because I don't know exactly in your countries where you are, this YouTube, WhatsApp, Facebook, we know all of that, but that's China. That is what is happening in China. And I think that not only the numbers are, oh my God, I think that one of the issues is that we don't know what is happening in China. If you see Alipay, WeChat, Neopay, Didi, Dianping, Taobao, oh my God, what's that? So this is the half of the world. I mean, this is what is happening in the other part of the world, and we are thinking about Facebook, YouTube, wherever, but this is what is happening in the other part of the world, in Asia. And when I see this picture, it's like, for me, it was like, I don't know any brand of this. I don't know any name of what's that? What's LME? What's Tihu? So this is the context. I mean, which means that the context is complex, is big, and even and you have to take that into account as well. So this is, we have seen the context and we have seen some global trends about what is happening with consumers, what is happening with brand and reputation, what is happening in internet. So now, taking into account all these context and all these trends, I would like to show you how I said in the index. I mean, the proposal of CSR just trying to talk about 7 big changes. So something that today I think that it's has changed in the companies, and I think that the when you think about why it's are these changes so important today, I think that the origin of that is CSR, business ethics, values, and these kind of things. And I think that, and sometimes we don't realize that, or we think that this is like a fashion, and I think that these changes are a fashion, and I think that this is not going to be a fashion. I think that this is something that is going to be on the table of business for, no, I wouldn't say for long term. I think that these 7 big changes has changed the business model. And I think that how I was saying, the origin of these 7 big changes are CSR, business ethics. Well, the first one is something that we think about the conception of company like a social institution. And well, maybe this is this idea about business or companies like a social institution is not new. I mean, I think that maybe we could think about 100 years ago, and of course, companies were in society. But I think that is sometimes it seems like if it's new. I mean, because to put on the table of companies this idea and to see to companies that okay, the first thing that you are is a social institution. It means which means in a really simple way that you are in society. I mean, you are a part of the society. You are not alone. You are not outside of the society. So this idea, I think that it's the one of the most important, and I think that the CSR has been pushing on this idea in order that the company don't forget this first issue. I mean, to have to take into account that business are in market and market that is in the society. So I think that this is one of the big changes, or this is one of the most important, or this is one of the big ideas of CSR. And I think that this is going to change the way that we make business in order that, I mean, to think that okay, we are part of the society, which means that everything that I do in the company has an impact on society, and I have to think about what's the impact. It's a good impact or it's a bad impact, because everything that we do every activity in the companies, or every decision in the company has an impact on society. And we could see this idea about about company as a social institution as well in the other side, because saying that companies or business is a social institution means as well that everything which is important in the society has to be important in market and in business. I mean, if we are going to the society and we think that could be a good idea to have a fair society, we should go to the companies to say, okay, for the society is important the environment, so it has to be important for you. For the society is important the solidarity, so it has to be important for you, because you are part of the society. And of course, it is not this, I mean, when we're talking about the solidarity or charity or whatever, it's not the same in the society than in business, and we have to adapt these ideas. But it's important for you that everything which is important in the society has to be important for you, and you have to do something with this issue. Well, these are not I would say that it's not only that business is a social institution. I think that there are a lot of surveys that showing that businesses, how I was saying, is not only a part of the society, but is one of the most important agents in the society, which means that it's hard to think. I think that it's very hard to think that we are going to build a good society if we don't have a good business or a good companies. Because the role of companies in the society is not only one role. It's not only okay. There are more institutions like NGOs or wherever, and everyone are important. Every of these institutions are very important. Sorry, sorry. But we could see in the as we could see in this survey, I think that what it's showing is that business are one of the most important institutions in the society. I'm not saying that it's the only agent, because I think that the government has as well a role, and the NGOs and the people and citizens or wherever. But the role of companies is very important in the society. So I think that this is one of the issues that we could see in these 7 ideas. Well, the second big change, I think that when we think about the goal of the company, usually we think about the benefits or profits. I would say that benefits or profits are very important. I mean, you can't carry on with your company if you don't have benefits or profits. But if we think about the real or the last goal of the companies, I think that one of the changes that we could see in business, in market, I think that the goal of the company is changing to the purpose. I mean, the purpose. What do you want to? What are you going? What do you want to do with companies? What do you want to give to the society? It's not only. I mean, when we think about the and I guess because you are in working of in an entrepreneur in a business, I guess that you are working in your vision, mission, values, and these things which are really important. I mean, I will say that not only with a good purpose you are going to have a good company. You need as well your mission, your vision, your values, your functions, everything. You need a lot of things. But I think that today we can see that the purpose of the companies are in the middle of the projects. And even when you think about the big companies, they are talking about the purpose, because I think that the purpose has very different returns. It's important for workers in order to work in a company who is trying to do something good for the society, something else than having benefits or profits. It's important as well for customers. It's important as well for society. So I think that when you are thinking on your projects, I think that it's a good point to think about, okay, what is our purpose? What do we want to give to the society? What are we going to do for the society? And I think that this idea about the purpose, and moreover, I always remember when I was studying in a SADE, which is a business school. I had a teacher who was always saying, okay, if you see a banker, person who is working in a bank, I don't know if he's banker or, okay, I guess that you understand. Jumping through the window, go through the windows, because you can be sure that there is a euro or a dollar on the floor. It's not because they are going to jump, and that's all. If they jump, it's because there are money there. So if that's, I mean, it's as well important, because when you see these big companies talking about the purpose and this kind of thing, this is not philanthropy. This is not charity. They are doing because they know that there are something in this idea. So I think that it's as well important to see what the companies are doing, because when they do these kind of things, it's because they are waiting for something. And for example, if we see in internet, I don't know the time. Okay, if we see in internet, for example, these are different missions of big companies, and they are in internet. So if you see how the companies are defining the missions of these companies, you can see something like, we create happiness by providing the finest entertainment for people of all ages anywhere. Experience the happiness of progress and apply technology for the benefit of people. I mean, this is the words they are using. I mean, if you don't know who is the company, you could think that maybe it's an NGO, work to help people and companies around the world to realize their full potential. It's like, what's that? What is happening? Well, this is some of the big brands, and I'm not saying that this is a good brand. I'm only saying that all the people know these brands: Disney, Sony, Google, Microsoft, Walmart, Lego. That's how they are defining the mission, and they are closer to the purpose than a mission, because they are thinking about the society. I mean, the happiness is not something who is in the market. The happiness is something, is a need in that for people, and it's in the society. And companies are going to the society to take this idea in order to go to the market to say, okay, I'm going to work on the happiness because I think that this is important for our clients or for our society. And I say again that I'm not trying to say that all these companies are doing that. Some of them are doing that better, worse, or wherever. This is, I mean, it's not the point now to see, look, these perfect companies. For me, it's important to show that what is happening in companies when they are talking about the mission and the purpose, and how they are defining the mission of the companies. Well, the third issue that I think that has changed in the companies when we are thinking about CSR is in the management approach of the company based on stakeholders. I think that some of these ideas, maybe today, at least when you are writing the business plan or the business model or whatever, always, I think that it's something that it's really present today to talking about the stakeholders. But if we think 20 or 30 years ago, I mean, a lot of companies were talking only about the shareholders. I mean, about the owner of the companies, the owners of the company. And I know again that a lot of companies are talking about the stakeholders, but finally they are thinking only about the shareholders. But at least in the language, I mean, in the business languages, they are talking about the stakeholders, and a lot of companies are thinking that it's very important to think about the stakeholders. So I think that this is as well one very important issue that CSR has put on the table, to think about the stakeholders. I mean, if you want to think about a good company, you have to think about your stakeholders. You have to do your stakeholder map to say, to check, okay, what are my stakeholders? Who is expecting something for me? Who is waiting something for me? And of course, you need to make a map, because not all the stakeholders are important in the same position. Of course, I mean, I'm not saying that all the stakeholders are important and you have to take into account everything for all the stakeholders. No, you have to put the stakeholders in your map, and you have to check who is more important than the other one and what is happening. And another tool, in order, when you are working on the stakeholders as well, you have to do the materiality matrix. I mean, what is important for these stakeholders? Because sometimes when I go to the companies, they say that they are talking or they are working on stakeholders, but when you ask, okay, and what are you doing with your stakeholders? Finally, they are deciding what is important for the stakeholders. They are not asking to the stakeholders. And I think that it's very important as well to ask to the stakeholders in order to discover what are the legitimate expectations, what are they expecting for my company, because everything that they are expecting and in a legitimate way, you have to work with this. You have to do something. I mean, if someone is expecting something for my company, it doesn't matter if it's a worker or customer or supplier or wherever, and this expectation is legitimate. I have to do something. I have to manage this expectation. So I think that this is the third issue, or the third, sorry, change in the proposal of CSR. And I think that the fourth one is in the vision of the company as a key agent for sustainable development. So I was saying before that not only the companies or business are a social institution, but they are one of the most important or agents in the society. And now I will say that it's one of the most important agent for a sustainable development. I mean, we need companies working on this sustainable development, because if they don't do it, I think that it's going to be impossible to have a sustainable development. So I think that this idea of the company is like a really, really important agent in order to make a better world. I think that it's today is really, really present in the companies, and we can see this is the global compact, the SDG, or these uh, initiatives in the world that, and they are working a lot of companies in order to say, okay, we need companies working in this SDG. If we don't have the companies, it's not going to be possible. And I think that this is what has changed today, is that maybe, I mean, I think that the roles of the public institutions or the social institution or the private institutions, I think that maybe 10 or 15 or 20 years ago, the roles was completely different. I mean, the public was, or the government where they were working on public interest. The NGOs and third sector was working on social interest, and the companies were working on private interest. But I think that if we think what's happening today in the world, what are the most important challenges that we have in the world, I think that suddenly or really fast we discover that we need to mix these roles, because we are not going to do anything with the environment, we are not going to do anything with the equality between men and women, we are not going to do anything, or not too much if we are working with the exclude people. We need to put all these public, social, and private working together. And if we don't do that, it's going to be really difficult. So I think that this idea as well is something that CSR and ethical or business ethics has been pushing and putting on the table of companies. Well, the fifth change in the expectation of the stakeholders. I don't know if I'm going really fast, or I know that I'm going really fast, but I said before, I'm going to make a big picture. And I think that every change or that we are talking about, I think that we could stop and to talk about, okay, I think that we could talk more about this point, but I think it's important to have the big picture, and then we can talk now or maybe another day about these ideas, right? Okay. Okay, so the fifth change, I think that as well in the expectation of the stakeholders. If we see a lot of, let me show you, I mean, if we see a lot of reports, you know, or surveys about the consumers, a lot of consumers who will pay more for sustainable brands, a lot of people, even 67% of people prefer to work for social responsible companies, and a lot of reports saying that, okay, the expectation of the stakeholder has changed. And I think that if we see what has happening in this expectation or in the maybe 2 or 3 decades ago. I think that it's similar than what was happening in the market. I mean, I think that the price orientation. I mean, a lot of. I mean, if we think about the consumers, for example, I think that, and of course, I think that it was very clear, at least in Spain, but I think that as well in a lot of countries. I think that one of the first orientations when you are going to the market and trying to see the expectation of the stakeholders is the price orientation. I mean, and a lot of companies are saying, okay, no, but the price is very important, and of course, I think that the price is very important. It's one of the most important issues. I mean, I'm not saying that it's not important, but if we think about the expectation of the stakeholders, I think that not only the reports that I showed you before are saying that, okay, the expectations are changing. People once is not the price is not the only issue that people or customers are saying, because I think that is quite normal to think, okay, price is important, but quality as well. I mean, when I'm and even I could say that there are some flexibility. I mean, sometimes maybe I don't know, you lose your work and then the price orientation is very important for you. But when you suddenly have a new job and then you are better, the quality appears. I mean, the quality and sometimes, and I think that, for example, one of the most important mix is about price and quality. I mean, you have to mix to make the best mix between price and quality. But when we think about the quality, usually we think only about the quality of the product, like a technical issue. I mean, the product is working. I press this button and it's working. But I think that today the expectation of the stakeholders are going to the, I like to say, social quality orientation, which means that, okay, the price is important, the quality is important, of course. I mean, don't think that um, and for example, I hate when I'm working with social entrepreneurship or social businesses, then and they say, okay, but we are a social business. Yeah, but your product is really bad. So I don't mind if you are a social business or wherever, your product is not working. So your product has to work, because if it's not working, it's not going to work in the market. But saying that, after that, I will say, okay, the social quality orientation is very important today, which means social quality orientation means that, for example, for people however we were seeing in the report, is important not only the quality of the price, but it's important as well where have you done your product, how have you done your product, what is happening with your product when I'm going to use it. I mean, the environmental impact, the labor impact, these kind of things today are very important as well. So you have to put it inside of your proposal, of your proposal, the price, the quality, and the social quality orientation, because I was saying the expectation of the stakeholders are changing as well. And well, I know that when we are making surveys, I mean, when you ask someone, okay, do you think that it's important the environment? Will you be agreed to pay more for an environmental product? A lot of people say, okay, yes, it's very important for me. I will be agreed that paying more. And I think that the reality is not exactly the same than these surveys. But first of all, I would say, okay, yeah, but there is a really big trend, and this is going to appear. And moreover, I am always like to show this number, because this is not a survey. This is the reality. This is the P&L. This is the fair trade. I don't know. I guess that you know, or fair trade, or anyway, it's a fair certification for products, and this is the P&L. This is not a survey, which means that a lot of people is buying in the world fair trade products. And if we see, I don't know if I had, no, but for example, in Spain, we are growing 10% every year. I mean, every year we are selling 10% more than the year before, which means that people is going to the market and going to the supermarket to say, okay, if I have to buy coffee, sugar, cotton, wherever, I prefer the fair trade coffee, or I prefer the fair trade sugar. And this is not a survey. This is the reality. This is the Excel. So I think that this is something that is changing, and I think that it's going to change faster than we think. I mean, I think maybe in the last 15 years has been growing and growing a little bit, but I think that in the next 15 years it's going to change really, really fast. So if you are in a company, you have to take into account this change, because you have to think that the expectation of the stakeholders, the price, the quality, of course, but as well this idea about the social quality, about how I'm going that, how I'm going the product. Well, the sixth issue about the transparency. I mean, this is an Spanish survey, just to show that the first issue you can see here is the transparency, like one of the most important challenges. And I think that this is going to be one of the most important issues for companies and for governments, and as well for NGOs. The transparency is, I wouldn't say that it's going to be, I think that transparency is today a very important issue. So I think that you have to take it into account. And I think the transparency has been as well one of the issues that CSR, business ethics, values, has put on the table to say, okay, we want to know what is happening in businesses. Maybe because the crises are showing that if we don't know what is happening exactly in the companies, we know that the consequences of the crisis, we are going to suffer the consequences. So we want to know what is happening in companies. We want companies and government and NGOs more transparent, and we want to know exactly what is happening there. And for example, this is a video that showing how important is the transparency, because I think that, well, I want to show as well that these ideas is not only because I think that it's important. There is a lot of people talking about the transparency and these ideas. So I'm going to put it. Can you hear it?
When we conducted the Food Revolution study, we wanted to understand the consumer demand for product transparency. And the data we got back really pointed out how important the issue is. We learned that lack of product information creates distrust and confusion. We surveyed more than 1,500 U.S. shoppers and learned that almost a third of them are confused by the labels on food packages and are concerned about eating products that have information on the label they don't recognize. Perhaps most alarming for brands, only a quarter of consumers say they trust the completeness and accuracy of food labels.
Consumers expect, arguably mandate, transparency today, but the brands aren't meeting their expectations. 94% of consumers say it's important to them that the brands and manufacturers they buy from are transparent about what's in the foods that they eat and how it's made. And more than 2/3 say they would value in having even more in-depth product information.
Despite consumers valuing transparency, only 12% rank brands as their most trusted resource for information about what's in their food. Still, 67% of consumers believe it's the brand or manufacturer's responsibility to provide them with this information. Providing product transparency presents an opportunity for brands to emerge as the trusted resource consumers expect.
Transparency is more than just a nice to have. It plays a key role in the decision making for shopping. It can even affect brand loyalty. The study found that most consumers consider whether they have access.
Well, I'm going to stop the video because I have to check that we don't have a lot of time. But I don't mind to share the presentation with the video, and then you can see it quietly in your house. But, well, I think that this idea about the customers, how the customers want to, or we want to know more about the brand, about the product, and we want to know. And sometimes even, I'm not sure if we are, I mean, when we talk about the transparency, sometimes it's not, I don't think that a lot of that all the people is going to go to the internet to see exactly what is happening with this brand because I'm buying everything. I don't know if this is going to be the way. I think that there are a lot of possibility to make innovation in this field or in this area of transparency, because I think that the future is not that people is going to know everything about the companies just because they are going to internet within reports. I think this is not going to happen. So I think that this is one field that we need to make innovation, but I'm completely sure that it's going to be very important for customers, and not only for customers, I will say that as well for workers, for suppliers, or wherever. Well, the seventh change, I think that, and the seventh and the last change, I think that as well, one of the most important changes has been that the relevant KPIs for an excellent company is not only the profits. So I think that if you are building a new company, and I know how important are the profits, I mean, I understand it perfectly, but you have to think about what are your KPIs for not only the P&L, but as well for for social impact, for environmental impact, because I think that the KPIs and the information that you need to show about your company if you want to be an excellent company is not only the profits. You have to do something else about the KPIs. And for example, this is what is happening with the investment. I mean, the people who is that I know as well how important they are for your companies when you want to grow or when you need money to make to build your company. So if you see what is happening with the investors, you can see that for example, 37% of the investors, they are always checking the impact, the social and the environmental impact in their investments. I'm not, or I'm almost sure that it's not because suddenly the investors are so beautiful people. I mean, and of course there are a lot of beautiful investors, but I don't know if it's exactly for that, but I think that is because when you can show not only your economical KPIs, and you can show as well your social, your environmental KPIs and your impact in these areas, you are showing that you are a better company. The quality of the management of your company is better. So if I have to put my money in a company, I want to check not only that they can make profits, I want to check that they can make profits in a sustainable way. And if you want to do it in a sustainable way, you need as well to take into account the environmental and the social impact. So I think that it's very important as well to take that point in your mind. I mean, what are my KPIs? If I'm going to the investors, what I'm showing? Because if I'm only showing the economical impact or the economical KPIs, I think that you have less possibilities to get money. So I think that it's very important, even if you are not a social business. I mean, these investors, they are not impact investing. They are not making impact investing. They are making investments in general. So even if you are not a social business, you need this to take into account this kind of KPIs. Well, I'm not going to show this video, but well, if we think about all these 7 big changes, about the context, the trends, I think that more or less we can see that, okay, we are talking about a new business model. I mean, this is something new. I think that everything that I have tried to show to you is not an anecdotic issue. It's not something that, okay, I can change something that's more part of my company and that's all. I think that they are really sewing or drawing a new business model. And if we think about this business model, the first idea that we have to take into account is that the ethical values and corporate social responsibility is a strategic commitment. It's something that you have to think in your strategy. You have to put inside of your strategy. If you don't do it, I'm going to say it really fast. If you don't do it, forget it. You are going to lose your money. I mean, you are going to spend a lot of time and a lot of money, and it's not going to work. So if you are not going to put it in the strategic mind of the companies, don't do it, because it's not going to work. I mean, I think that I have seen a lot of companies trying to, or saying that they are working on ethical issues or CSR, but when it's not real, is not in the culture of the companies and it's not in the strategic of the strategy of the company, it doesn't work. So I think that this is important to take it into to think when we are talking about that. Well, this is a strategic commitment and the business model. We could try to, if we try to put it everything, all of these changes in a sentence, you will see that it's a really big sentence without any point, any comma. So this is, but if we think, I have tried to put it in a sentence, no? Like the company as a key social institution to achieve sustainable development for a purpose of positive impact on society that is managed through the response to the expectation of the stakeholders and the transparency of the results of this management. Well, these are more or less the ideas I have tried to show you. And this joke is in order to show you that, okay, we are talking about a lot of things, so it has to be something bigger than to make to give money to the NGOs. And please, I'm using this example, but it's very important that companies were working with the NGOs. I'm not saying that this is not important. I think that I would love that more companies were working with NGOs and helping to the NGOs. But when we are talking about CSR, we have to think that it's something more, it's something bigger, it's something about the business model, about how I'm thinking my business, how I'm thinking my proposal, my business proposal. So this business model and this strategic commitment needs an ethical framework. I think that I said before, if you are not going to put everything that we have been, all of these changes, if you are not going to think in with a inside of an ethical framework, is not going to work. Because I think that the market and the context of companies today the companies need this ethical framework in order to get trust. So, and if you don't get the trust of your stakeholders, it's not going to work. And the trust is something. The ethical issues or the business ethics is very important in order to get this trust. But see, if we think about the most important words when we are talking about this business model, more than this big sentence, I think that there are two important issues. One of them is responsibility, which means respond to the stakeholders, to the expectation of the stakeholders, and accountability, which is to be transparent. I mean, I think that there are two words in every CSR business model that has to be present, which is dialogue and transparency. I mean, you have to dialogue with your stakeholder, and you have to be transparent with the impact of the KPIs that you are the results of the management of this expectation of your stakeholders. So I think that it doesn't matter how do you do it in your company, because you can use different tools, you can use wherever, but dialogue and transparency has to be inside of any CSR business model. So these two ideas has to be very important in order this business model to generate a social impact. And when I'm saying social impact, I'm not thinking only about social business. I'm thinking about the business. I think that the business and companies for the future, the most sustainable companies in the future, they has to generate social impact, which means as well that, of course, if you generate a good social impact, I guess, or I would love, or I would like that you have as well a good P&L. But you think, if you think about the social impact, I think that you have more probability to have a better P&L than if you don't think about the social impact. So we think this is more or less the idea, but I didn't want to finish without talk a little bit about social business, because I think that, well, because maybe some of you, I don't know, are thinking about social businesses, are thinking, or you feel a social entrepreneur. And I think that today is a really important trend as well in the society, in order to take the best things of the NGOs, to take the best things of companies, to take the best things of society, and to think that, okay, why not I can make our company thinking of the social impact and has profit about with them. So this is a video about business, social business, that I think is too much, because I'm always almost 1 hour and a half, so you will be able to see the video in the when I give you the slides. But I would like to really finish with these issues of the SDG that I guess that you know, because I think that they are a really important inspiration for social businesses. I think that it's like, sometimes when you see that, it's like if someone has done my analysis of the market, someone has find 17 needs in the market, in the society. So I think that if you think about these goals, you can see that all of them could be an inspiration for social businesses, for being a social entrepreneur, to think, okay, what can I do in order to finish with the poverty or with hunger, and how can I do that in order to get profits as well, but to generate a social impact. And I think that I wanted to finish with this picture, because just saying that, okay, if you are in a entrepreneurship world, why not to try to make a business to answer these needs who are in the society, and it's very important as well for the world. So that's all. I don't know, I guess that here you have my email and how can you connect with me. So I hope that even I have been really fast, I get my goal to show you the big picture about a lot of things who are happening around business ethics, corporate social responsibility, and companies in general.
Thank you so much, Roberto. Thank you. As you were saying, this is such a big topic that, of course, you have to just give the big picture. In the future, we can also schedule detailed things if everyone has doubts and wants to go a little deeper on any topic. Mm-hmm. Does anyone want to ask something specific about your venture, about some challenges that you have? Let me see if we have any questions. Only mine. For me, it's very interesting, and it's always been one of my passions as well, to understand how we shift from a market, as you were saying, driven for price and product, into mm-hmm. If you don't have a sustainable impact, you're condemned, because your venture will not be able to serve the new system. So it's mm-hmm. very interesting to understand also that CSR, it's not only about donating money to NGOs, and sometimes not even fitting their needs, to actually working with them and doing synergies, and the teams learning with each other and doing it integrated. So those are my two favorite parts, I would say. I had some question here, maybe that would be interesting for some of the people that are listening. The main challenge would be on how can a brand communicate their trust, so be transparent when communicating in our branding. If it's a platform, how is it possible? What are some key strategies, like simple strategies to avoid communication issues?
Yeah. Well, I think that this is one of the most important challenges, even for the big brands, because I think that today when companies are working on in order to build a brand, I mean, you know that the brand has a lot of attributes, and I think that one of the challenges is how to put inside of the brand these attributes about transparency, business ethics, CSR, thinking that, how I was saying before, that people is not going to read your report. I mean, because this is not the reality. People is not going to read the CSR report wherever. So I think that one of the most important ideas for me is that in order to get trust is something that you have to build. I mean, it's not something that happens suddenly. So you have to build the trust. And usually I use, or sometimes I use the one example of our life. I mean, imagine that if we were in a class or whatever, or you cross with me in the street and I say to you, you don't know me, and I say to you, please trust on me, what will you do? I mean, I think that people will say, oh, what's happening? I don't know you, and you are saying that trust on me. So I think that this idea is what companies has to understand. It's not trust on me. It's not going to the customer saying, okay, trust on me. I think that the important issue is when we were talking about the transparency, you have to ask as well to your customer, to your workers, what do you want to know? And after that, I know that it's not easy to put the information or to get or to show or to communicate the information. But I think that this is how I was saying, this is one of the challenges. Okay, how are we going to do that when we see a brand and if you are building a brand, the customers are going to see or are going to discover what the ethical or CSR attributes are under this brand. So I don't have the answer. I know that this is one of the challenges, and I will say that it's not something that is going to happen in there. I mean, when you are building a brand, it's not going to happen in the short term. I mean, you need to work and work and work, and then maybe depend of the relationship with your stakeholders, you will get this trust or this this relationship with your stakeholders.
Perfect, thank you. Does anyone wants to ask or add anything? We have Manuel, Samina, and Alvaro. I think that we don't have any questions. That's good. Also, Roberto left. Thank you so much. You left your contacts here. So if anyone has any questions after and wants to get in contact with Roberto. From my side, I just have to say thank you so much. We covered a lot. I think it was very useful. Also, if anyone wants to give their feedback, feel free. I would, in one word, I would just say the resume for me in one word would be integration. And absolutely. And what about you, Emmanuel, Sumina, Alvaro? How would you resume it in one word? What was the sensation? I have to unmute you, right? Maybe. Sumina?
It was very good.
Sorry, I think we couldn't hear you.
Oh, it was very effective.
Effective. Good.
Sorry?
Effective. Emmanuel?
Strategy.
Strategy. Alvaro? I think I cannot unmute you.
In one word, will be terrible. Much impact.
Impact. Great. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you, Roberto. And if you have any questions, just on Slack, just let us know in the community, and I can also forward to Roberto. And when Roberto sends me the presentation, I will send it to you.
Okay. Thank you very much for your attention, and it has been a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Bye.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
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 Bye.